Hello and welcome to another edition of Azure Every Day, and I want to talk about Azure Databricks today. So why use Azure Databricks? There's a lot of good reasons, and it is a proprietary runtime improvement over the Apache Spark. The originators created the Spark and handed it over to the Apache Foundation. It originally started as a Hadoop, and then they figured out that Spark was slightly faster and more improvements, and then the founders created the Databricks company, and it was soon ported to the Azure Databricks as a standalone component. The advantages are it can process huge amounts of data, and that data is native to the cloud. So everything happens in the cloud, is born in the cloud. It can be analyzed, processed, and then reported on. Some of the features are the validation, so you can ingest the data. You do your business rule validation in the ETL. You can process change data capture to see changes over time. And you can do advanced analytics. And lastly, there's a ton of machine learning features. It does everything to keep in memory. So that's one of the advantages and the speed over the traditional other methodologies that we've had. The Hadoop tended to be a bottleneck with the input-output and the MapReduce and writing to the HDFS. The clusters are easier to set up and configure. The nice feature about having it stored in the cloud, especially Azure, is that it separates the storage and the compute. And when you shut the cluster, your data still lives in the cloud. And that's important because you're charged separately for the compute versus the storage, and the storage is rather cheap. Some of the benefits of using the Azure Databricks are the tight integration into the subscription. You can integrate with the Azure Data Lake Store and the blob storage to retrieve the data, store the data, update the data. It also integrates tightly with the Azure Data Factory as part of your cloud-based extract, transform, and load process. It has a SQL Synapse connector, and you can also connect to the Azure DB, the database. You can integrate with your Active Directory in the cloud and Azure. And you can also spin up a cluster using the DevOps and maintain your code in a Git repository. It also has Ganglia to store your metrics. So by using DevOps, you can increase your time and not be burdened by the administrative tasks that we used to have working with this type of data. It also supports multiple languages. Scala is the root one. It also works quite nicely with Python. That's kind of the go-to. It also interacts with the SQL, which is nice. A lot of data folks learned SQL over the years, and so you can intermix your SQL. It also supports R. A nice feature with the Azure Databricks is that you can have collaborative notebook environments. So as you're typing into code, someone else can also be watching. They can add comments in real time. So think of Google Docs, where you comment in the notebooks, and the conversations reside in the margins. It also has a nice revision control that stores the revisions, and you can hook that up to the Git repository in Azure. It breaks down the silos between the data engineers and the data scientists. So there's a lot of traditional ETL that goes on in the Databricks, but then there's another level, which is the machine learning and the data scientists, and there's tremendous amount of components and modules to integrate into your flow and process. And you can also integrate your CI/CD, continuous integration, and continuous development. And both can work on the code at the same time. There are plenty of use cases in the Azure Databricks, such as the genomics, mapping DNA, imaging, insurance, risk and regulation, the IoT, video and image processing, and supply chain. It can also handle satellite images and natural language processing and a variety of others. So in summary, the Azure Databricks helps develop code quickly in a scalable cluster, which is tightly integrated into Azure. You can read files from the data lake and the blob storage, and you can read and write to the SQL database as well as the Synapse. You can perform advanced analytics within the clusters, and you can program interactively with other departments such as the engineers or the data scientists, save your code to the DevOps Git code repository, and as well as use the pipelines to stand up your infrastructure. At the end of the day, you can extract, transform, and load your data within Databricks Delta for speed and efficiency, and productionalize the notebooks into your Azure data workflows. If you would like to discuss Databricks or have questions on Azure or Power Platform, Click on the link below for more information, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you further. Again, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Take care.